Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Old Iron Garage. Tonight we are going to be picking up right where we left off on the 5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton engine. Let's not waste any time. It's cold out here. Let's get to it. All right, folks. So here I have the fuel tank. It is pretty well cleaned out. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. The bottom of the fuel tank was covered in a thick layer of black goo, old varnished fuel. Now and then there was a little bit of surface rust on the inside of the walls. I had put a handful of nuts and bolts in there, and then didn't really know what I had on hand to really loosen up and dissolve that black varnished fuel. So I put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I put some carb cleaners, some brake cleaners, just kind of a mixture of stuff. Some gasoline, a little bit of a little splash of seafoam. And it worked. Something in there, something in one of those things, maybe multiple of those things helped to loosen it up. And by shaking it around with all the nuts and bolts in there and everything, it loosened up, and I got it all rinsed out and flushed out. So let's go ahead and start reassembling. Shoot. Okay. I thought I had what I needed over here, and I guess I didn't. But I am going to be reusing the gasket that was on the bottom side of the carburetor. So, I've already rebuilt this carburetor in a previous video and got everything freed up and moving and working like it should. Okay, so I guess I didn't check the choke. The choke wasn't opening all the way, but it is now, so. The carburetor, I don't remember if I had bench set the carburetor, so I'm going to go ahead and, no, I have not. So I'm going to go ahead and bench set the carburetor. So 1/2 turn, 1 full turn, 1 1/2 turns. That, just a good general rule of thumb is when bench setting a carburetor, the air fuel mixture screw or any adjustment screw really, and turn it in all the way till it stops. Don't like try to torque it down or anything. It's not like that. Just all the way until it stops. Then go back it out 1 1/2 turns. So this is ready to install. Now, if you remember from the previous video where I went through this carburetor, the diaphragm was rock hard, so I put in a brand new diaphragm kit. The diaphragm cover was warped, so I took it on sandpaper on a flat, smooth surface, and it was some WD-40, and I sanded it until it was no longer warped, until the gasket surface, the sealing surface was perfectly flat. I cleaned up the gasket surface on the carburetor side for the diaphragm. This gasket surface here, I took it on the sandpaper like I did the diaphragm cover, but this surface is very warped. It would have taken me probably an hour going at it like that on sandpaper with some WD-40 until it was all perfectly flat. So I did it for a little bit to get rid of some of the warp, and then I just took sandpaper and cleaned the rest of the surface up. And this I'm going to use some sealant on. And that would be this stuff. This is Permatex number 2 non-hardening form a gasket sealant. This stuff is fuel rated. I also have the other version of this stuff. This is non-hardening. I also have the other version which is hardening. It does get hard. So they both work great with fuel. So, but anyways, I'm going to use some of this on this old gasket here, just a real thin skim of it. Because the gasket's not torn or anything. I cleaned it up. There was a little bit of debris on it, a little bit of dirt. I cleaned it up, but I'm going to put a real thin skim of that on here. And then I'm also going to put a layer around the throat of the carburetor here to help it seal, since this is badly warped and I don't feel like sanding it for like an hour. So anyways, let's get started. Oh, when I put a thin skim of it here for the gasket, I'm not actually going to put it on the gasket because the carburetor will already be on the engine, and I don't feel like trying to like work upside down. I'm going to put it on the gasket surface on top of the fuel tank. Oh, what else did I do to the carburetor? I about forgot. This primary pickup tube was plugged at the bottom, and the screen was plugged, and I had to remove the pickup tube, and I had to clean all that, and I had to take the pickup off of the pickup tube and clean all that out. I was able to salvage the screen. But yeah, all the ports in here, all the passages for fuel are all cleared, and this is ready to use. Another thing I did off camera was I have repaired the handle for the recoil. I didn't have a spare one on hand, so super glue actually bonds extremely well to old dried out rubber for some reason. So I super glued the cracks, and then here on this side where the rope goes through it, it was missing one side of it completely. So I just wrapped electrical tape around there, and that'll be good enough, really. I mean, it's strong, it's sturdy, it's not coming apart. I tried bending it and breaking it. I can't break the super glue apart. So it functions. That's really all I was shooting for, because these engines don't really sell for a whole lot. So if I had to put too much money into it, I'm not going to do it, because I won't get that money back out of it. Oh, another thing I did off camera was, this is the air filter housing that was on there. This air filter belongs to a small, like 3 horsepower maybe, vertical shaft engine for like an old lawnmower. I'm guessing by the color, maybe 70s. I'm not sure. I don't know. So I went in my stash of used parts and I found a correct air filter housing. This is for this style is for 3 and 5 horse Briggs horizontal shaft engines of this era. And it came complete with that spacer. And even this mesh screen, which is not completely necessary, but they are nice to have. They are helpful. So the spacer keeps from, if you over tighten that screw that holds this all onto the carburetor, it keeps from squishing the lid down, or the cover down, too far. But still allows airflow in to the carburetor. And then I went in my new old, I could not find a good used air filter that I could just clean and reuse, clean and oil and reuse, without robbing one from a complete or nearly complete engine. So I went in my part stash and I found an air filter. This is not the exact correct air filter, but it is very close, and it will work just fine. I just have to do a little bit of trimming. I might not even have to do any trimming, really. I'm going to see how it fits and go from there. But this is close enough that it will work fine. All right. me think. Oh, and if you remember from the previous videos, the recoil cover that goes over the flywheel and the coil was missing one bolt. I went and I got that bolt. I found a bolt that'll fit. So, all right, now let's dive in. Man, this engine is so dirty, I would love to give this thing a power wash, but not at this time of year. Definitely not at this time of year. Whenever this was bolted to, I just found a lock washer in the grease and dirt that was. Check the other side, where that's down here on the base of the engine where the bolt holes are. All right. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get busy working on this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to hook the linkages and everything up for the carburetor, and we're going to get that installed. Got a couple of nice hot, or tumblers of nice hot peppermint tea out here, as it is rather cold out here tonight. It's like, I think, in the high 20s. So, yeah, it's definitely chilly. It's colder than I'd like it to be. That's all that really matters. Actually, I'm going to apply this direct to the carburetor. With it being cold out here, this tube of Forma gasket is a little bit stiff. So it's kind of slow putting it on. It's hard to squeeze out of the tube. So we're going to apply a nice layer. Not like, a 1/4-inch bead or anything, but we are going to apply a good layer to that because the warp on this was pretty excessive. So we're going to take our finger and we're going to kind of smear it around a little bit and make sure that it has a good bond. And we'll form a nice seal. I'm sure I have more on there than what's needed, but I'd rather have too much. A little too much than a little too little. And end up with a vacuum leak. All right, so I need these screws. So now we're going to go ahead and hook up this linkage here for the governor. And there's a little spring here that hooks on. So now those are hooked up. Now we're going to put in the screws. We're going to start threading those into the block. Come on now. That's going to pull the carburetor in. That Forma gasket is going to touch the other surface. And it is going to start to squeeze out and create a good seal. Okay. Got one tight. And now the other's tight. And I can see that a little bit has squished out. A nice little bead of it has squished out all the way around, creating a good seal. So now, we're going to push this back a little bit. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to put some of this, I don't know why I bothered just putting this cap back on. We're going to put some of this form a gasket onto the fuel tank, making sure to go around not only the pickup tube holes, but also the screw holes, because those screw holes go down into the tank. So if the gasket is not making a good seal, if there's not a good sealer on the screw holes, fuel can leak out. Now we don't need as thick of a bead here, just a real thin skim is fine. I'm rolling up the bottom of the tube so I can squeeze it out a little easier. All right. So now I'm going to take my finger and work that stuff around. Kind of spread it around. Kind of even it out. And make sure that it's actually kind of pressed down onto the gasket surface. To create a good seal. Like that. That'll create a nice, real nice seal. That'll seal up real nicely. It is not necessary to cover the entire surface that the gasket will touch. Like this open area here, if I would have filled that in, it would have just been wasteful, and I would have had more squishing out, creating a mess. Yeah, it really wasn't even necessary to put a line between the two pickup tube holes, but I did it anyway. So now we're going to get this, we're going to put the tank on from beneath, making sure that the pickup tubes go through the holes they're supposed to go on, or in. And we have to also hook up this little governor spring down here and this kill wire once we have it on. So before I go up and touch that gasket and make a mess, I'm going to get the parts I need. drop one screw in, get it lined up with the hole, and take it up. Take the tank up so the screw's going through the hole, and get one screw started. Now I'm going to get another screw started, make sure it drops into its hole. Once I have two screws in, the tank is lined up how it should be. All the holes should line up just fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and suck that tank right up to the carburetor by snugging these screws. Before I can put in the third one, I have to put this tube on. It appears that I have forgotten to clean it, which doesn't really need to be cleaned because most of the engine is not getting cleaned. But some of these smaller parts I will just go ahead and clean by hand, at least a little bit, to wipe off some of the excess dirt, debris, grease, whatever, just to kind of clean it up a little bit. I did clean up the outside of the fuel tank somewhat. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, because it wasn't really all that necessary. So we're going to get this tube installed. We have to get that installed before we can install this final screw, because that screw also holds this. It's a little bracket that goes over that intake tube to hold it down and in place. Once I get this one snugged up, I'm going to go around and I'm going to tighten them all nice and tight. That will cause the former gasket sealer to squish down and spread out, giving it a very nice seal, a very good seal. All right, that is done. The tank is on. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in, so I don't forget, I'm going to go ahead and put in that lower tank bracket bolt. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to hook up this spring. I'm going to need my long needle nose pliers. You can do it with a regular pair of needle nose pliers, but the long handled ones just make it a little bit easier. With the long narrow handles, or with the long narrow parts, it just helps you to get in there with and still and not really obstruct the view, so you can see a little better. Daggone it. I may have to bend that spring. It's a little bit bent from someone in the past. They bent it over and it's too far closed. Okay, I bent it a little bit. This spring has honestly seen better days. All right. So that is installed. Now I just need to hook up this kill wire. See if I can do this one-handed. Yep, there it is. So now, okay. I was going to say the only thing we have left is to put the recoil cover on, but no. There's one other detail I'd like to address. Turn it this way so you can see it a little better. This cover up here, there's an engine tin up here that helps to direct airflow through the cooling fins on the head. If you look, it is bent downward right here. It's bent right there and goes down, slopes downward. That's not good because it allows a decent amount of airflow to exit out on top of that tin instead of going underneath it and going through the cooling fins on the head, which can cause an overheating issue. So I'm just gonna take an adjustable wrench. I like to use adjustable wrenches for like bending back like sheet metal that has been bent, because you can put it on there and adjust it down to where it's just, thick enough to hold the sheet metal. So I'm going to try this first. Looks like we got it, but this needs to be bent inward a little bit. All right, that's good enough, really. I don't really want to take that off. I got to put the recoil on. I will just, let me try. Okay, that's a little better. Where it bends and goes down was like bent out. So I just kind of bent it back. Okay, good. The governor appears as if it should work properly. We have a loose bolt here right here on this tin here, which directs airflow around the cylinder through the cooling fins. That's going to be a 1/4 inch bolt head. So let's find a 1/4 inch. Here we go. Socket. Let's move this up into place and just give it a little snug. We don't want to twist it off. That is a very easy to twist off bolt. It's very thin. I feel like the aluminum threads that it threads into is stronger than that bolt is, because I've seen so many of these bolts twisted off in that hole, and they are not fun to try to repair. All right, so I think we're at the stage where we can put this on now. The recoil, and then I think after that, you know what time it is. It's time to try to put some fuel in this thing, fire it up. Oh, I am still missing a piece. Oh, we do need to, we also still need to oil up the air filter and install the air filter and air filter housing. Could fire it up without that though, but I am going to go searching for this piece later off camera, and it's not really a major piece. We're not going to be running this thing long enough that we're going to really desperately need it. So I'm going to worry about this later, and we're just going to keep filming, and we're going to get this thing together. There we go. That is all in place, as it should be. Didn't I say I found a washer? Because this is... Where did I put that washer? Here it is. Because this bolt was on top, was missing a washer. So now it has one. The washer's about one size too big, but that's okay. Okay, I have all the bolts started. I need a 7/16 socket, and we're going to run them all in. Huh. That's why that bolt was missing. Apparently the threads are stripped out in the block. So, at a later time, I am going to, off camera, I'm going to have to rethread that and put a bigger bolt in. But for now, I'm just going to leave it. Probably from somebody using an impact. Alright. So, there is one other thing we may have to do. I just remembered. I'm going to go ahead and fit this housing. Daggone it. Fits nice. This screw, if you remember, when I was disassembling, I said somebody put a stack of little washers on there to use as a spacer, because this, I mean, I can tell by looking at the screw, this is not technically the correct screw. So this might be too long. I'm going to assume it's too long, so I may have to shorten it. We're going to run it in and find out. Yes. So it's about 5/16, I'd say 3/8 of an inch too long. So I'm going to shorten this. Unless... I don't think I have any up there in those bins that would be long enough. I'm going to look real quick, see if I have any that would be long enough. I got some hardware bins up here. The little cabinets with the drawers, you know, that I got for free somewhere, and they had a bunch of hardware in them. At some point in time, I'm going to go through them. That's too small. It's probably metric as well, is my guess. But at some point in time, I'm going to go through them and take all this hardware out and put whatever I want in there instead. Yeah, I'm not going to have any. So I am going to have to shorten this one. Well, maybe. That might work. But that's going to be too short. Yeah, that's too short. That's the right size and the right thread, but it's too short. So, I'm gonna have to shorten this one. So I will be right back. Hey everyone, I'm going to go ahead and cut this video here so that this video doesn't run too long, and we will pick up right where we left off in the next video. If you have not yet, please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. All right, bye.